Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Pitafi. Viewers, I hope you remember those days when terrorist activities in this country were taking its toll. And whenever you talk to somebody from abroad, they used to tell us that your country is more or less written off. After that, we saw the national election plan took place, and after that, Pakistan has fought back and almost vanquished the enemy. One proof is North Waziristan, the part of the country where everybody thought that perhaps there were terrorist safe havens, and through that they were not only attacking other countries, but they were attacking fellow Pakistanis as well. But now it is quite, relieving, so to speak, that yesterday a group of journalists were taken to North Waziristan. I was one of them. And not only we went to Miram Shah, the place where it was very difficult 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago to walk on the streets. And yesterday we walked around, we spoke with the local populace. Not only terrorists have been defeated there, life is being reconstructed and people are very comfortable now. We also spoke to the DGISPR, the spokesman of army. And there, while he was also interacting with the local populace, he told us that during line or Pakistan-Afghanistan border that needed to be fenced. There is a 2,600 kilometers long border, out of which 1,200 kilometers were identified and that they have to be immediately fenced. And he told us that 900 kilometers have already been fenced, and the rest will be completed within this year. This is also great news. Then we were taken to the Pakistan-Afghanistan border, and there, while speaking to us, DGISPR said that the issue of Durand Line is now finished, and Afghanistan, the onus of stopping TTP and other such groups are now on Afghanistan. That is very important. We are going to talk about all this and more in today's program. In order to help us understand these issues, we are joined by an old hand, a person who knows the region inside out and who has served there as well, Brigadier Retired Salim Kamar Butt Sahab, a defense analyst. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Abdul Basit, who is an expert on counter-terrorism issues, but he keeps on insisting that he should be a written research scholar. Thank you very much for being part of the program as well. We will be joined by a third guest on telephone. The moment they join us, I'm going to introduce him. But let me start with Brigadier Salim Kamar Butt. Sir, your take on fencing of the border, how important is it? And when journalists are taken to such places, remember that India keeps on talking about Indian occupied Kashmir. There is no comparison, but it keeps on talking about that it is a democratic region. Never takes journalists there. But our authorities now can comfortably take us to North Waziristan as well. Your comments, sir.
Right. I think the concept of fencing Pakistan-Afghanistan border, the only hindrance was the opposition from the Afghanistan side. Pakistan, ever since American came in along with the allies in Afghanistan, there was a lot of flood of people coming from Afghanistan towards Pakistan, and we had nothing to stop them because there was nothing to stop them. Even surveillance equipment or nothing was there, only here and there we had certain frontier corps posts. So the need was felt badly in 2002 and 3 that Pakistan-Afghanistan border must be having some kind of fences so that they could stop and make it possible for the frontier corps to regulate the movement from both sides of the border. Now that will take care of the problem two ways. One was that stopping illegal people or the terrorists or the militants coming from Afghanistan towards Pakistan. And other was mitigating the allegation put on Pakistan that there are terrorists, especially the Haqqani network, that they are coming from Pakistan to Afghanistan.
Right.
So both ways. But Afghanistan never wanted it to happen because they wanted to keep that issue that they had ever since inception of Pakistan, that Pakistan-Afghanistan border is not acceptable to them. They called it Durand Line. Well, that issue has been killed effectively.
Right.
I think Pakistan Army has done a great job
Right.
by undertaking this project. Out of 2,600, 1,200 they have undertaken already on the selected zones, 900 kilometers already complete, and believe it is going to help Pakistan to control the flood of people
Yeah.
that has been coming to Pakistan.
And they were telling us that it might be one of the reasons why entry of terrorists into our lands has stopped. That is
Right.
very important also. Abdul Basit, I'm going to come to you, sir, in a bit. Before that, let me welcome the third guest who has joined us on telephone, Professor Dr. Hussain Shahid Suharwardi Saab, an expert on international relations. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Right. Sir, I'm going to come back to you, but I have to return to the studio. Abdul Basit, your take on fencing, on how the tribal areas have been brought under control and now the violence has decreased.
In terms of timing of the visit, I think it is coming on the heels of two good news. One is that it is a post-conflict society in tribal areas, particularly North Waziristan. The other is the positive developments on the front of Afghan peace process, because we have to have peace on that side of the border to have peace on this side of the border.
Right.
Because no matter what we do, as long as Afghanistan is boiling, there will be some kind of negative spillover here. So I think in terms of timing, it is good. That is on the political front. Now, on the security front, border fencing is a serious step forward. To not only to stop militant movement, but also to regulate the illegal cross-border movement,
Right.
because there was a lot of politics on that from this side of the border and that side. So for once and all, I think they have tried to settle the matter. Now, as the DGISPR said, perhaps the ball is on the Afghan court. They will have to accept the eventuality.
Right.
So I think with this political front having two good news, and on the geographical front having the border, we have to move beyond that on the human terrain then.
Okay.
So I think, and the results are quite visible in front of everyone.
Yeah.
The number of attacks have come down, the number of casualties. As a matter of fact, this in last year, in 2018, the number of attacks were less than 500, and the resultant casualties were less than 600, 595 something.
Right.
So that is a visible improvement in Pakistan. Now, what is the challenge? The challenge is, despite all these figures coming down, yet Pakistan was among the top 10 countries worst affected by terrorism.
Right.
So that is our challenge going forward. But with all these steps at the political front, at the geographical front, and at the security front, I think we are continuously and gradually improving, taking our security on the Western front seriously. So going forward, I think let's keep our fingers crossed on the Afghan peace process. If
Right.
things improve continuously on that front.
I'm going to bring
Yes,
in Afghan
yes.
peace process as well,
Yes.
because it is sort of integral
is.
part of the discussion. But let me now go to Dr. Hussain Shahid Suharwardi. Sir, your take on the peace efforts in Waziristan and how far we still have to go, sir. Your take.
Thank you very much, Patafi, first of all, for inviting me over this very important and need of the moment subject. Waziristan is experiencing a combination of fruit in shape of peace, but at the same time some grumpy complaints from the local people. Grumpy complaints from the local people because peace has prevailed, everything is settled down, and that was really what we were yearning for. But right now the issue is that people are complaining that their shops, houses have been erased, things have been stolen, and they are missing. So during the ISPR's Director General's visit, I think you must have noted that people were at the same time registering their complaints with him as well, that this kind of stuff has happened. And then I myself am from South, and I have numerous such reports that people are very happy with the return of peace, but at the same time they are saying that there is a lot for the reconstruction and development of the region. But Tafi, one thing we must bear in view that from North Waziristan, when people came over to cities like Bannu and Diya Khan as well as Peshawar, they came over even till Peshawar as TDPs. They before that had no such taste of development and the ways a civic society runs. They were in a very backward area, and they didn't know even that such a great society can respond to the needs of the people. I mean, such a great service of the government is responded to the people. But now they have tasted it, and now they want that all such facilities which are provided in Diya Khan, Bannu, and Peshawar must also be there in Waziristan. So I believe it's a combination. Peace has prevailed. At the same time, FATA has been merged into settled territories. So settled territories have gone till the Durand line. And now it is more of our responsibility to incorporate these backward areas and to develop them and reconstruct them. I must also say, and that will be my last point, that there are certain elements who are trying to cash the complaints of the common man in those areas. They are gaining more momentum. I believe all these movements which are working there, they would die down the moment we really cater to the needs of the people. We really we fulfill their expectations that they are having after this Operation Zarbiaz, after return of peace for themselves, and especially in the background of erstwhile FATA merger with the KP.
Right. Dr. Saab, please stay with us. Let me come back to the studio. So you have heard Doctor as well and Abdul Basit. Now, there are many questions. For example, if you remember, across this border, there is a number of divided families, divided tribes. There are people here, we were told, that who own property on the other side. So now what happens with the fence to easement arrangement?
Right. I think I heard DGISPR mentioning that there are about 4,000 families which are being called back from the Afghanistan side with their own property on that side. I'm sure government must have made some package to rehabilitate them permanently on our side of the borders,
Right.
and that will take care of them. But having said that, let me also mention that this fence is not only a barbed wire which is there. There are electronic surveillance devices there.
There are three
but then
things,
there are going to be a lot of manpower from the Pakistan side who are going to permanently man that. There is principally going to be the Frontier Corps in order
We
to
are
make
raising
sure
new units
that
of FC.
the fence is not breached. Now, what benefit is going to bring to Pakistan? One is the political side that was mentioned by my friend. But primarily, you see, who were using Pakistan-Afghanistan open border to their benefit and to the disadvantage of Pakistan were the smugglers, were the
non-state actors of various kinds.
Yeah, non-state actors, the terrorist groups. Then there were drug cartels who were bringing bad name as well as to all the social evils towards us. But above all, there is a lot of flood of refugees still existing inside Pakistan. So it would be ultimately easier for Pakistan to make some arrangement with the Afghan government, with the outgoing US government, so that these refugees in some time frame go back to their country and rehabilitate
I
there.
understand about refugees on either side of the border, the
Right.
people who have come from there,
So if we
and
have
people
there-
who have gone from here. But they are, when, Durand line was actually drawn, when it was agreed upon, when the border was agreed upon, at that time there were divided tribes, right? On both sides of the
I've
border.
seen many villages on both sides
Exactly.
of the border. Right.
So what happens to them? Are they still, will they retain the easement right, or they are going to be given some kind of
I'm not sure about that, but easement rights were a terminology introduced by the colonial British people. So the government of Pakistan, as far as I'm concerned, is not obliged to
Follow that. You want to
honor
say
that
something?
commitment. But I'm sure the political government on both sides will find some formula to address this issue. Ultimately, we are going to be two neighbors, and it is better to be good neighbors.
Right.
And there can always be some visa or permit which can be given to the people so that they continue to go through the proper gates which are provided. Ghulam Khan, you have been there.
Yeah.
There are so many other crossing places which are regulated. So I think those crossing places were available and the movement is regulated. There is no harm going to and fro.
Right.
But
Abdul
it
Basit.
does have to be free for all kind of things.
Okay. Abdul Basit, you wanted to add something.
Just very quickly, I think, we are in a post-conflict phase as far as North Waziristan is concerned. On that side of the border, we are moving towards conflict management and hopefully conflict resolution. So in peacetime, the border has to be there. In peacetime, you can reconsider some of the stipulation you have for the border.
Right.
That is number one. And you can ease the movement. People can easily come over on both sides. Number two is like, you have examples all around the world. For instance, I am based in Singapore. So Singapore separated from Malaysia. So the Malaysian-Singapore border is, the Malaysian town is called Johor Bahru. Now, Johor-Singapore border is based on terms where Malaysians have properties in Singapore, Singaporeans have properties in Malaysia. So what they have is long-term passes. These are based on 15-year passes, 20-year passes. People can easily cross. They own the properties. There is nothing that disputes that these properties do not belong to them. They do meet their relatives. So I think going forward, once you have peacetime, what you are raising is a legal question. That what kind of legal framework you need to have to protect their rights. At the end of the day, as I said, you need to work now, you need to work on the human terrain. How do you do that? You have to be in the peacetime to look beyond security to these matters. So I think an answer will be found, but you have to have the political will, and it is good that such discussions are already taking place. So you can issue them long-term passes, they can own the properties.
Call it whatever you may. It can be easement, it can be long-term passes, it can be something else. But such passes will have to be territorially bound as well. For example, there was this idea floated when they were introducing 25th Amendment that easement right on the other side, when it is given, the people will be able to come in, but within 50 kilometers of the border, not beyond that.
Because, for that they'll need to have the visa. For that they need to have the visa. So if they have the easement rights, and they have the visa, so I think it shouldn't be a problem. But once again, as I said, you have to be in the peacetime. In when you are in conflict or when you are in a post-conflict environment, there are always suspicions because you never know one or two terrorists trying to pose as refugees or trying to pose as the citizen may try to cross in. So you have to be careful. In the peacetime, when your relations improve, when the border movement eases out and more trade is taking place, people are coming to meet families, so you'll have a better environment. Until then, let's hope that there is peace, we achieve peace, and we continue to move forward. This is
we have to move forward.
Absolutely. This is a positive movement, momentum going forward towards that.
Right. Dr. Suharwardi, one question regarding resources. You are an expert on international relations, sir. The question is about resources because we were told that it will take something like 70 billion rupees to build this border, something to the north of $50 million. Sir, there are other liabilities as well. Life has to be returned to the people of, Waziristan, tribal areas, and it takes a lot of resources to do it. Do you think that world community should be a partner in this kind of rebuilding as well, sir?
Let me take this. Let me answer your question from this term that the war that is still in run and which had started just after 9/11 was global war on terror. And in this global war on terror, Pakistan was the non-NATO ally and at the same time frontline ally, which means Pakistan was to bear the brunt. Which, by the way, it's not something new to the world community. We fought at the end, along with the capitalist world, to defeat communism in the past, and we were the frontline ally. At the moment when war took place just after 9/11 against terrorists, Pakistan was once again in the forefront. So Pakistan bore the brunt, and then America, when asked about an account of $33 billion, they also realized, and they must realize this thing, that Pakistan has lost $123 billion of financial loss, which was in shape of different other things. And that is also documented. It's not something that I am saying from my own side, or the government of Pakistan and finance minister is saying from his own side. So everything is quite much recorded. In the circumstances when it is global war on terror and Pakistan is the frontline ally, Pakistan is trying to curtail the pathways through which a terrorist sneaks into other countries like Pakistan, like Middle Eastern countries. At the same time, from Pakistan, people are going there. If that is the case, that border is so porous, of course, it will damage the cause of the war on terror. And this is what is happening here. So for long-term strategy, it was the need of the time. I believe this would have been done right in the beginning of the war on terror. Things would have been definitely by now changed. But whatever it is happening, this is perfectly fine. And now, directly answering your question, of course, if it is global war on terror, the entire world must finance it. It's not something exclusively for Pakistan. We need to draw all. If it is an international border, it must be guarded, especially where Pakistan and Afghanistan are situated, especially the nature and disposition of the enemies we are confronted with. So therefore, if we have such borders, the terrorist movement will be curtailed, and in this way, we will harm their cause. I believe not only world community must come to the fore, but all these neighboring countries, they must also support it. Moreover, from nationalist point of view, I must also say that Pakistan, because our tribal belt has gone to the Durand line as settled area along border along farmer Fata areas. This is also needed that the Durand line must be confirmed, and there must be only gates through which movement may take place. I believe this is what is called international border. This is how visa restrictions are applied. This is how people come in and go out while showing their passports. Once upon a time, such restrictions were not there, which was quite obvious. Of course, border was porous, peace was prevailing, and both countries were very close to each other. But when third party entered as non-state actor, as a terrorist, they started playing havoc with the lives of the two countries. So, of course, extreme problems need extreme solutions. And this extreme solution Pakistan has taken in shape of border management, visa, passport.
Dr. Saab, with due respect, every country now is talking about their borders, even America. And they are talking about
Mexico
building a wall with
5.7 billion.
Yeah, he has been asking for that amount, but actual, the allocation will have to be much higher to build that wall. Regarding this wall, it is important, but you were mentioning 2004, 2005. Back in those days, everybody used to focus on porous border. Right. And they would say that it is not even possible to manage it. Right. But something seems to have shifted now. Right. And we see leadership stepping forward and building all the entire fence. Right. Sir, regarding another thing which is very important, merger of FATA into Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, 25th Amendment. We were told that there were certain enablers that were expected. They had to be actually introduced before the merger could take place. But because the previous government decided that they had to do it before leaving the government, they did it very quickly, and the enablers are not there. How much is it going to set us back?
I think there has to be a lot of backup support to implement what the previous government said and this government is going to do. And we need a lot of money and a lot of time to implement everything,
Yeah.
But
how do we get money?
Let me come on that. The money is a main issue confronted by the present government, as everybody knows. So ultimately some solution would come up.
Yeah, but there was an agreement that NFC's 3% will be given by the provincial share. Provinces will be volunteering.
And we hope that promise is kept, and because nobody more than Imran Khan, Prime Minister now, having the previous provincial government and present government, I think he would be more focused towards this, and he has his heart and soul there. So we expect that the present government will honor that commitment, and it will happen. But let me tell you that I have seen the erstwhile tribal areas in 2002, 3, 4, and 5.
You have served there, right?
Right. So I have been there in all 7 agencies, and I have seen them in a very, very poor form. What has happened there is now is a marvelous change that I can see. That has made all 50, 60 countries that have come to Afghanistan to see what Pakistan has been able to do the magic there. See the road infrastructure there,
Yeah.
the runways, the airport, the school, college, the education sector, the health sector, sports, whatnot. They have made it, a different world altogether, and that has actually helped the political government to undertake this merger of the tribal areas into Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. So this is, I think, a good omen for the people of tribal areas to
Okay.
become part of the mainstream politics.
Right.
And
Apart from money, what are the factors that might affect this merger? It can delay, right?
Right.
The process. What exactly are the factors that might actually do it?
I think basically one thing is that the economic side that you had just mentioned, that will be taken care of. The other is the political factors. Because there are a lot of people living in tribal areas who still want to live in the past. I have heard some very senior ranking civil servants who belong to tribal areas, and they are cribbing that, well, that was a better system, and now they are not ready to accept it.
Secretary Fata would have great powers.
Right.
So, not anymore, right?
Then there are people who used to mint a lot of money by the existing structures there, and they were the sort of warlords. They were the smugglers there.
Which warlords? I mean, we didn't have warlords on our side.
They were sort of warlords who would.
I mean, are you talking about tribal elders? Because there's a difference.
When the war, we have fought the war.
Yeah.
We are our feel of the area is different from a journalist who has just visited. We have fought there for 17, 18 long years.
Yeah. A journalist who has been covering the region for 20 years.
Right. But fighting a war and covering a war is a different ball game. I don't want to undermine your effort, but what I'm saying is that your feel about a particular problem is different. We have seen Fatah burning.
Yeah.
There was non-acceptance of anybody's entry there, whether a journalist or a military man. They would not accept anybody. So since they were our own people, so we had to actually win hearts and minds.
Right.
Unlike the allied forces on the other side of the border, we were extra cautious that we should not cause any collateral damage. On the other side was no concern.
Abdul Basit, I'm going to come to you, but there is a question regarding hearts and minds, and it is very important. When you reconstruct life, when you rebuild the, broken lives there and infrastructure as well, one thing is important, that many people get freebies. And I see the value in it, because people lost their property due to no fault of their own. But now when you are rebuilding it, there is one instructive thing coming from Indian side, and that is in Madhya Pradesh, Modi government decided that they are going to hand out a lot of property and houses to the poor. And they kept on trying to do it, but they couldn't actually deliver the entire number of houses. And that's why half of the people who didn't get it voted them out. So is there a possibility that when we are actually committing to providing them livelihood, there won't be any backlash or a negative impact?
As I earlier said, that the PTI government in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa has been dealing with this problem for the last about 6 years now, and they would be ultra cautious about this aspect, which you very eloquently mentioned. There is a similarity, but I think what has already been done in the tribal areas, this aspect has already been taken care of. There's a lot of work done, but I'm sure there are people laying a lot of claims about their properties, about their destroyed shops, etc.
And unfortunately, before this operation, there was no record.
Right. So anybody can make right or wrong claims,
Yeah.
but I think the political government, with the involvement of the local mashrans, the tribal elders, they will be able to find some solution to that.
Right, they will be able to. And we were told when we were interviewing the leaders over there, people over there, they told us
I think
that
you must have been told that about 95% of the internally displaced families and people have already been rehabilitated
Yeah, that is
effectively.
true, that is
so if there is some small cribbing by somebody that he didn't get the right kind of share, so I think ultimately
yeah,
that will
and
be
the
addressed.
only humble submission is that we mortals actually operate on a very different plane of existence, where day-to-day affairs is more important. And if I could have gotten something and I didn't get it, and somebody else did,
But it's good to
I might be
discuss that.
cribbing about it.
No, it's good thing that the people who have to do it, they're listening to us and
Yeah,
they take note of that.
absolutely, absolutely. Abdul Basit, money, reconstruction, 25th Amendment. Please go ahead.
I think to your question that it is a very potent one about the funding. I think we played our part in the Afghan peace process, right? We paid a price for becoming part of the US-led global war on terror, which is now coming to an end. So if things go well, as they seem now, I think there will be a US-Pakistan rapprochement, provided there is peace. So definitely, I'm assuming there will be some compensation package announced for Pakistan for being part of it and for being part of the peace process and helping the US, exit from Afghanistan.
Yeah, are you sure in the time of
I'm
Donald
assuming.
Trump? Donald Trump?
There will be some kind of a compensation package, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So let's hope for that. They have placed sanctions on us. They have suspended the coalition supports funds and other funds.
they did.
They might restore that, so that's one part of it. The other is your local funding sources. You mentioned about the National Finance Commission Award. The other would be international donors because they have their eyes on this area.
Or national or international investors, perhaps?
Yes, international donor agencies.
One thing that every time I go there occurs to me is how beautiful the entire terrain is. You can have tourism there.
Yeah.
You can
So
have so many things.
For to moving towards the peacetime, I think we'll have international donors. Would depend on our diplomacy, how our diplomacy works to bring the international donor agencies there.
You wanted to add something, Brigadier Sir?
Yeah, I think
I'm coming back
very
to you,
rightly
Najib.
said so. The international donorship was already working. The government of UAE, the USAID programs have greatly helped in rebuilding tribal areas. And as very rightly said, that we can justifiably ask the American government to actually help us in funding the fences. About 70 billion rupee have been only spent about this
Fencing of the
1,200
border.
kilometers of the border
Yeah.
fencing.
It is a very valid
But
point.
rebuilding is something which we being partner in the global war on terrorism, I think international community has to be approached maybe from the forum of the UNO, that when we are doing it and we are the main enabler who are making the peace process happen actually, so we ought to be helped in order to make sure that it lasts longer.
Right.
I think proactive deployment, to your question, proactive diplomacy is one part of it. Expecting some kind of a compensation package for being part of this war on terror and then being part of being a partner in peace in Afghanistan is another. And then you have to use your local sources very smartly. Now, three things are important. You are moving from a conflict to a post-conflict society and from a post-conflict to a peacetime society. So a couple of things happen, Number one is a rule of law.
Yeah.
You have to stand for rule of law and you have to establish the rule of law. Number two is transparency and accountability of your action. Now, what happened yesterday or today when journalists were taken is part of that accountability and transparency process that come on the ground.
And we were told that the local population is being enabled as well. They are being
Yes,
consulted.
Absolutely.
Taken
So,
into confidence.
Which is the third part of it. So one is the rule of law, which is long-term process.
Second, transparency.
Second is transparency. You saw that happening. And the third is, which you mentioned, people-centric approach. During the wartime, During the conflict time, you have an enemy-centric approach. You move from an enemy-centric approach to a people-centric approach, which Brigadier Saab mentioned as winning the hearts and minds. Now, what is important is to win the hearts and minds, you have to have the hearts and minds.
Yeah.
So if your heart and mind is in the right place, I think you can
Oh,
move
I
forward.
saw a lot of heart there. I tell you, people who have personally suffered, and I'm talking about our soldiers, they were being so forthcoming and they were so welcoming, not to us only, but to the local populace, that it was really astounding. Because there's a lot of propaganda that goes on in the media, but we didn't see it yesterday. And last time when I went there, perhaps it wasn't there at that time also. There is a proactive internal policy in play too. Let me go back to Dr. Hussain Shaheed. Sir, regarding money, regarding 25th Amendment, do you want to add anything, sir?
Well, nothing. I think the two gentlemen have already spoken a lot about that, and quite aptly things have been described. What I can say is that this is the high time we must go very cautiously, very gingerly, proceed further. And the reason is that the Afghan situation is extremely volatile. Anything can happen anytime. The stakeholders, the people who are in negotiations are quite unpredictable. I'm talking about Afghan government, Taliban, and America. They sometimes play havoc with peace efforts. Even if we reach to the culmination point and we are about to strike a deal, something happens in this part of the world, sometimes by a very responsible element like US, and entire process is hampered. And of course, then it has its own backlashes on Pakistan, especially FATA, and then especially in those areas where you visited yesterday. So then we have also to see those elements who are sneaking in very silently in shape of Daesh. So if a negotiation phenomenon is taking place between the Taliban and America for Afghanistan, we need to see how will the world handle with Daesh, because those who will not be agreeing with this deal that is going to take place would probably join Daesh, because their bread and butter is to fight, and they are in search of it. And you know that right now the world's richest organization is Daesh, and which is paying in Afghanistan $750 per month to each person who is going to join them, which is very, very attractive salary package for anyone who is there in Afghanistan and who is unemployed and probably is considering himself nothing. So in the circumstances, challenges are a lot, opportunities are great. However, we need to be very careful, very cautious. We should not over expect things from the circumstances. This region is a bit unfortunate for striking successful peace deals.
Right. Dr. Saab, stay with us. You want to add something?
Yeah, quickly. So you see, one thing which has changed at the top at the international level is, there was this article in Foreign Policy, I think a month back. The exact title was, "Goodbye War on Terror, Welcome China and Russia." So America is moving back to the era of great power politics.
Okay.
So we had this movement in unipolarity after the Iraq War, where America enjoyed unrivaled monopoly over the international politics until the 9/11 attacks. And then in the movement of unipolarity of the international political system, we had this war on terror going on for the last 17, 18 years. Now is time where I think for all intents and purposes, the era of the war on terror is coming to an end. It is the beginning of the end of it. It started in Afghanistan, and I think it is going to end in
And
Afghanistan.
there as well.
So I think the American intention is pretty clear. They have made it clear that they want to leave the region. Now it is on all the stakeholders, and quite rightly pointed out by Dr. Hussain, that these stakeholders, Pakistan included, would decide the manner in which the US would withdraw.
Being a student of IR, I'm intrigued by your comments. You're saying that war on terror has ended. That means also
Beginning the end of it.
The beginning of the end of unipolarity, perhaps also, when you are saying
which
that
will be
we are
more
going back
gradual.
to the great power
I
politics?
think, on that,
Are we entering into multipolarity, or is
if
it
you
complex interdependence?
if you grab the recent copy of the Foreign Affairs,
Mm-hmm.
there are 4 articles on the international political order.
Yeah.
So one debate is that we are moving towards a bipolarity.
No, but
US
the
versus
best book was written by Richard Haas, who
Yeah, yeah,
says
yeah.
it is not order, it is disorder.
Yes,
It is
so
chaos.
absolutely. So one
Yeah.
of the article is by Richard Haas. So he believes we are moving towards bipolarity. It is US and China. The other believes it is going to be multipolarity, but much more complex. But much more complex. The other believes it would still be unipolarity, but with multiple parts entered. So it will be
Right.
more gradual, to your question. But the war on terror, for all intents and purposes, America has clearly sent the signals that they want to bring this to an end. And then it is on the stakeholders how they would like the US to leave.
Right. Dr. Hussain Shahid, do you agree with this observation, sir?
Slightly disagreeing. The word, this unipolarity phenomena is not at all there. It is almost over. It is basically great power politics. When we come to unipolar thing, we mean superpower, or bipolar, or multipolar. Superpower status at the moment, no one is qualifying for that, with the exception of United States, as per the textbooks of international relations. Only America is qualifying for that. So at the moment, what we can expect is great power politics, and not that unipolarity, multipolarity is going to take place. And bipolarity, impossible. China and Russia are not at all in a position, and I repeat, not at all in a position to challenge the authority of the United States. At the same time, US is also focusing more on its domestic politics. So I believe this will continue as it is at the moment. Moreover, we need to see that this war on terror is coming to an end. Really, war on terror will never come to an end, even in the next 50 years. And the reason is, it's a war against a concept. It's not war against an entity. For example, it's against a house, a building, an army, or something that is visible. This concept of terrorism, it can muster anywhere. Like it can muster even in a person like you and me. We are very badly treated, we are badly affected. So somehow this concept and phenomena will continue, one shape or another. It will be there. And another thing is, it cannot be any case. It will not be associated region or with one nation. Even America themselves, European themselves, one day will get up, and when they are treated unjust, people will resort to force. And they will resort to force in such a manner that they will also come into the definition of terrorism. So I believe that whatever is happening at the moment is happening as a part of sorting out the things and bringing peace and building peace in the region. But I can't say that it is the beginning of the end of war on terror. I mean,
War
it's
on terror, it might not be end of war on terror, sir, but let us hope that terrorism leaves our region and we don't have to fight it, because it shouldn't be there. Sir, thank you very much, Dr. Hussain Shahid Sohrawardy, for your time. This is the perk of engaging two academics in the program. But Brigadier sir, very quickly, conclusions, you and then Basit.
I think we got into a very academic and scholarly
but you get
discussion.
deeper answers
But I
as
just want to add to that, that my take on that is that I agree with Dr. Hussain that it's not the end of
Beginning
war
of
against
the
terrorism.
end of
not
the...
even beginning, because, but maybe Abdul Basit is right in saying so that the theaters where these wars are fought and the way these wars are fought, these are going to shift and change. But America is taking a back step. He's going to now focus more on the big rivals like China and Russia rather than focusing on these things. And that is why there is a strategy in the whole, and there is a plan to hand over these wars to the other actors, the regional actors, whether they are in coalition or they are individual actors. And that is very visible. I don't want to mention the countries.
There is a problem. There is a bipolar world order. There used to be, right?
So multipolarity
and then
Right.
there is another thing that ordinary mortals like me and others might actually suffer from, and that is bipolar disorder.
Right.
Do you think that it is global order, or we are talking about world's singular power having a bipolar disorder.
Right. The unipolarity term came when the Warsaw Pact countries, they evaporated. But then
Right.
could US be called unipolar when it was all banking on the NATO
This idea and
military
context
muscle?
is very important, Brigadier Saab, but I'm told that we have done short of time. I was just surprised by this information that we have to conclude the program. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. Abdul Basit, thank you very much for your time as well. Viewers, you have listened to our participants right from the visit and exploring what exactly is going on in erstwhile FATA. We came to a deeper discussion as well, but one thing is for sure. Pakistan has shown to the world that if you have the conviction to fight a war and to win, you do win it. And we have seen people actually taking back their lives and this country taking back its territory. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.